In the shadows of World War II, a secret group was waging a war unlike any other. They didn't use guns, but deception. Armed with inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, and carefully crafted sounds, they tricked the Nazi war machine. This was the Ghost Army, a top-secret Allied unit with one mission: to deceive Hitler's forces. Here's the untold story of the Ghost Army and how their art and cunning helped win the war. The secret mission? In 1944, as World War II was reaching its peak, the Allies had a bold idea to outsmart the Nazis. They wanted to trick Hitler's army into thinking there were huge Allied forces in places where, in reality, there were almost none. To pull off this grand illusion, they needed something extraordinary: a group of soldiers who wouldn't fight with weapons, but with tricks, sounds, and pure creativity. And so the Ghost Army was born. The Ghost Army wasn't your usual military unit. It was top secret, with only a few people in the world knowing it even existed. Imagine being one of those soldiers, knowing that your mission is to fool one of the most powerful armies in the world. Instead of rifles, these men were given inflatable tanks, speakers, and fake radio chatter. Their job? Make the Germans believe they were facing a huge Allied force, when really, it was just a small group of 1,100 men. The Ghost Army was filled with artists, actors, engineers, and sound experts. Many of them had been painters or sculptors before the war, people who knew how to create something from nothing. But instead of painting on a canvas, they were now painting entire armies out of thin air. They used every trick in the book to make it look like the Allies had way more soldiers and equipment than they actually did. They even wore different uniforms to pretend they were from multiple units, adding to the illusion. It was risky business. The Ghost Army had to operate close to enemy lines, sometimes even right in view of German scouts. They couldn't tell anyone what they were doing, not even other Allied soldiers, because if word got out, the whole plan would be ruined. But they knew their mission could save thousands of lives by drawing German forces away from real battle zones. So armed with fake tanks, loudspeakers, and plenty of courage, the Ghost Army set out to do the impossible. This secret squad of artists and tricksters was about to play one of the biggest mind games of the entire war, all to protect the real troops. And little did the Germans know, they were about to be fooled by an army that wasn't even there. Artists, engineers, and actors. An unusual army. The Ghost Army was unlike any other military unit. It was handpicked for one reason. These soldiers weren't trained fighters, they were trained creators. The US Army gathered artists, designers, engineers, and actors, people with the skills to build illusions and deceive with absolute precision. These weren't battle-hardened soldiers, and now they were taking their talents to the front lines. Imagine being an art student one year and the next becoming part of a top-secret mission to outsmart the Nazis. Many of these men had studied at prestigious art schools like Yale and Cooper Union, while others had careers in theater and sound. They were skilled at creating realistic scenes, designing props, and bringing things to life in ways that could fool almost anyone. Instead of working on a stage or a canvas, they were now constructing fake armies to mislead the enemy. The soldiers of the Ghost Army didn't just paint and build, they transformed the battlefield into an elaborate set. Their skills allowed them to construct entire fake military camps, setting up inflatable tanks and trucks so realistic that they could fool enemy reconnaissance planes. With expertly crafted sounds to match, they created the impression of a massive, well-armed force ready for battle. From a distance, these decoy tanks and vehicles looked as genuine as the real thing. And it wasn't just about visuals. These artists became actors too. They learned to play the role of various military units, moving around in different uniforms, setting up camps, lighting fires, and even following the routines that actual soldiers would. If a German scout observed from afar, they would see what appeared to be a fully functioning military camp with soldiers going about their daily tasks. But it was all a carefully orchestrated act to convince the enemy of a large presence that wasn't really there. Every detail mattered. The Ghost Army went as far as creating fake tire tracks and footprints to make it look like heavy vehicles and hundreds of soldiers had moved through an area. They were masters at the small details, adding the touches that made their scenes feel real. They thought of everything from the placement of tank tracks to the way they arranged tents and supplies to maintain the illusion. This wasn't just about appearances. It was about creating a realistic experience from every angle. The Ghost Army soldiers studied real military units closely, imitating their behaviors and movements perfectly. And while they didn't carry heavy artillery, they possessed something equally powerful: the power of illusion. These artists, actors, and engineers turned the battlefield into their stage, performing a daring act that fooled one of the most powerful armies in the world. Inflatable tanks and illusion tactics. One of the Ghost Army's most incredible feats was their use of inflatable tanks. Imagine a field filled with Sherman tanks, but upon closer inspection, they're just blow-up models that can be moved with a few men. These inflatables were part of a carefully crafted illusion designed to fool enemy reconnaissance planes and spies. The unit also used dummy aircraft and trucks, creating an entire fake army that looked convincing from a distance. Their job was to make the Germans believe they were facing a formidable force. The art of sound deception. While inflatable tanks provided visual deception, sound was equally crucial. Ghost Army engineers developed state-of-the-art sound equipment for the time, recording noises of rumbling tanks, soldiers marching, and artillery movements. These recordings were then blasted from large speakers, creating the illusion of advancing troops. The sounds were so realistic that German soldiers often believed a massive army was moving toward them, even when no troops were actually there. Radio trickery and fake communication. The Ghost Army was also a master of radio deception. Radio operators created fake transmissions pretending to be officers and even entire divisions that didn't exist. These radio operators spoke in code, mimicking real-life conversations between military units. The Ghost Army's radio trickery was so precise that it often fooled German intelligence into thinking Allied forces were in one location when in reality they were miles away preparing to strike. This misdirection played a crucial role in the success of major Allied operations, fooling the Germans at Metz and the Rhine. The Ghost Army was instrumental in several key operations. One of their biggest successes was in Metz, France, where they managed to convince German forces that a major Allied attack was coming from one direction while the real assault was prepared elsewhere. Later, as Allied forces approached the Rhine River, the Ghost Army staged another elaborate deception. This fake army drew German forces away from the real crossing points, allowing the Allies to break through and push into Germany itself. The cost of secrecy and the personal risks. While the Ghost Army's tactics were brilliant, they came at a personal risk. These soldiers were often stationed in vulnerable locations, drawing enemy attention away from actual Allied troops. In a way, they were sitting ducks, knowingly putting themselves in harm's way to save others. Yet, they couldn't tell anyone about their dangerous and secret work. Most of their families and even fellow soldiers in other units didn't know their true mission. The Ghost Army operated under the tightest secrecy, and their stories remained classified for decades after the war ended. How the Ghost Army changed warfare? The Ghost Army's success left a lasting legacy. They showed the world the power of psychological warfare and set a precedent for modern military deception tactics. Their work didn't just contribute to winning battles, it saved lives by keeping real soldiers away from direct combat. Today, their influence can still be seen in military strategies worldwide. The men who once crafted inflatable tanks and staged radio shows became the forefathers of a new type of combat, one fought with illusion and art instead of bullets. The Ghost Army's work was hidden for years, but their contributions were as critical to the Allied victory as any frontline battle. Their courage, creativity, and unwavering dedication prove that war is not just fought with firepower, but also with wit and imagination. Today, their story stands as a testament to the brave men who dared to fight with illusions and succeeded. So next time you think about WWII, remember the artists, actors, and engineers of the Ghost Army who made history without ever firing a shot. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible war stories.